Good morning. I'm addressing myself in this video to guided reading students, semester 1. So you are fresh students. So welcome to the English department first. I hope you'll enjoy, your studies in this department, and that you'll enjoy studying guided reading. As you may have figured out, you have two subjects which are related to reading. You have reading comprehension and précis, and you have guided reading. Well, as far as guided reading is concerned, it deals with literature. Which is not the case of reading comprehension. Reading comprehension, you have some texts which are taken from some novels, but in guided reading, as the syllabus I sent you and my colleagues, my guided reading colleagues sent you, you have three texts to read in this semester. You have two short stories. You have a Christmas song by H.E. Bates and the portrait by Aldous Huxley, so two English writers. And you have the novella, which is an Italian word for a long short story. A novella is a story which is shorter than a novel, and it is longer than a short story. So in this semester, you're gonna study The Pearl by the famous Nobel Prize winner, American author John Steinbeck. It's a 100 pages story, very exciting and very inspiring, translated in so many foreign languages and studies even nowadays in many high schools and colleges and universities. So, as you may have noticed, I speak very slowly. I'm doing it on purpose, so to give you time to understand every single word that I'm using, because normally in a conversation and in everyday life, we're not supposed to speak, slowly in this way. But I'm doing it on purpose. And the other thing is that you're going to realize that I'm going to repeat myself. I repeat myself because I'm with the first year students, and I try to make myself as clear, as straightforward as possible. And my main purpose is to help you understand these works and to understand the course. That's why sometimes I repeat myself. So you're going to be examined on the three works, which means that you should read all of them. You have no choice here. So, and it's going to be a more common exam. So most of guided reading are using the same syllabus. So anyway, in this introductory video, I'm not going to talk about these works. So I'm going to give you a short definition of what is a short story. Well, we have the term story. It is a story. And these ones we're going to study in this course are written. In a short story is a kind of narrative. It is simply a tale. Someone is telling that something is happening to some characters. So it is a short narrative. We have a narrator. someone who tells us what is going on, what is happening to some characters. What characterizes a short story, and like a novel, everything is condensed. It is brief. The writer, focuses on a specific situation, on a specific period of time in the protagonist's life. And like in a novel, where the authors deal with, they may deal with the childhood and adolescence and adulthood and old age of one character. But in a short story, the authors make a choice to focus on one particular specific, meaningful moment in the life of the protagonist. The protagonist is the central character, the most important character in a short story. He is the dominant character. The whole story is about him. Most of the events are about him. He takes the most important decisions and he makes actions. So he is called the protagonist. And this protagonist usually faces many crises, many obstacles, many problems, either with his family or with his society or with his environment. Or we have even some protagonists, who have some psychological difficulties. So the writer focuses on their internal crisis. They suffer because something, within themselves. But in many cases, we have protagonists who have issues, who have problems, who, there is a kind of misunderstanding and there are clashes and conflicts with other characters and with society. And most of these characters suffer and they struggle and they fight, to make changes in their lives and to be happy. So in a short story, well, we have a writer, we have the author himself, but he uses a narrator, someone who tells the story. So please don't confuse, don't mix up the author, the writer, and the narrator. The author is the person who writes the story, but within each story, we have a narrator or narrators who narrate the story, who tell us what is happening to characters. Then we have a plot. In every story, we have a plot, which is simply a series of events. Things are happening, like in human life, like in real life. Characters are born and they grow up and they go to school and they meet other characters. So we have a plot. And in most plots, we have a conflict. There is something that is a kind of struggle of misunderstanding between the protagonist and the other characters. So we have a crisis. Some things don't go as fine as the protagonist wishes. We have secondary characters or minor characters. Characters who are really important in the story, but they are not as important as the protagonist. Otherwise, the writer wouldn't have chosen, them in the story. They are not as, they don't receive much attention from the author as the protagonist. So we have the plot, we have the characters, we have, of course, the setting. Every story, whether it is oral or written, takes place somewhere. So you have to pay attention to the setting, to the space, to the place where the story takes place. So does it take place in a town, in a village, on the mountain, where, in a house, in a castle? And most of settings are symbolic. They symbolize something in the story. Then, so we have characters, we have the plot, we have the events, and we have, of course, what does the story talk about? And in a short story, because it is short, most of the time, usually we have one main theme or two main themes. I mean, one main major idea that the story is about. So either it's about love or about marriage or about death or about suffering or about divorce or about greed or about poverty. It depends. But since it is a short tale, most of the time we have one theme. We don't have many themes like in a novel or a play. That's why whenever you read a short story, you have to ask yourself what happens to the characters, what type of ideas, what type of subjects and topics does the writer discuss in the story. I mean, does he discuss love? Does he discuss divorce? Does he discuss money? I mean, human beings. And most of the time we have human beings, and sometimes we have animals. I mean, and some characters many times are compared to animals in a kind of symbolic way. So, as I told you, it's an introductory video. So, just to give you some hints and some guidance, when you start reading your stories, pay attention to the title. The titles are most of the time short and catchy, and they are like the keys of a house. I mean, they give you really a clear idea about what the story is about. Sometimes, I mean, these titles are ironic and symbolic. Another advice, I advise you to read the beginning of your short story and the ending so many times, because in these parts, most authors provides the readers with much information. We have many details and descriptions and information about the characters, where they come from, their background, their age, their physical appearance. And the ending is very important as well. Sometimes, I mean, there are some readers who don't figure out what the story is about until they reach the ending. So that's why even when you end reading the story, go back to the beginning again and go to the ending again and try to see what goes on in these main parts of any short story. So you have a Christmas song, you have the portrait, and you have the Pearl, a novella, as I told you, 100 pages work. So whether it's a short story or novella or novel, it comes to the same thing more or less. I mean, you have to use the same tools and the same approach, which is because you're going the day of the exam, you're going to be asked to make a kind of analysis, which has nothing to do with the summary. So when you are asked to make an analysis, you have to tell us what is going on and why. You don't summarize the plot of the story. No. You have to tell us why you have these characters, why these characters behave in one way or another. Another essential and very important component in any story, whether it is written or oral, whether it's long or short, is the language. What type of language does the writer use? Does he use a standard, formal, old-fashioned, colloquial, conversational? What type of language do we have, and what type of language do the characters use? And every character uses a language that helps us know what type of character, what type of personality this character has, like in everyday life. The type of language that any one of us speaks gives us an idea about what type of persons we are. So, to recapitulate, or just, to sum up what I said, and I hope that you'll enjoy these stories. And once we meet every other Thursday, I expect you to come up with clear, relevant questions about the story, not about the course. And here I want to make myself clear. Those who haven't read their texts, it's quite normal that they shouldn't have any questions. Okay? So I expect you to read this text at least 3 or 4 times. To use your dictionaries, this is your job in all universities of the world. It's not the professor's job. You have to look up the difficult words to write down. That's why I advise you to use paper. The paper form. Don't read your stories on a cell phone. I don't advise you to do that. You better have the book so that you can write notes on your book. You can explain the difficult words, you can highlight, you can underline, can circle. And whenever you go back to the text to read it again, you will have all the explanations and the notes in front of you. So it's more useful, more practical to work on a paper book than listen to audio book or use your cell phone. So I hope that I helped you have a clearer vision of what you are supposed to do in this course. Okay? So you are supposed to do the 90% of the work. And when we meet every other Thursday, don't hesitate to ask me questions. This is the only way that can help you understand more these stories. So enjoy your stories, because if you don't enjoy reading, you won't get much out of it, like everything in life. So I hope that you will enjoy them. And in the following videos and the following sessions, I'll deal more directly with the stories, and your questions will help me to know the type of difficulties, what type of areas, what are the aspects of these works that are difficult to you. So if you don't ask me questions, it will be very hard for me to know So, but through your questions and with your questions, I can offer you more helpful videos. And thank you.